Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that I only introduced you to for the first time quite recently here on the channel. But I really enjoyed the last beer that I had from these guys. It was, ridiculously drinkable for what it was, a New England triple IPA. And these guys are quite hyped brewery actually. They do carry a hell of a reputation when it comes to the hazy New England style IPAs. So for this review then, we are going to head over to the US West Coast, the state of California, Los Angeles and Torrance to be specific. And that means that we're going to have a look at my second beer from Monkish Brewing Company. So this one is called the Foggy Window. It comes in at 8.1% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, double IPA. So hopefully this is another nice beer. The last beer that I reviewed from these guys was the Oculars. That was a big 10.3% beast of a triple IPA, but I thought it was kind of stupidly drinkable for what it was actually. It really had a very kind of quite light and wet and drinkable kind of vibe about it actually, but it was a very, very nice beer. So really curious to see how this one turns out, as I said already. A massive shout out and thank you in this review once again to Chris Contreras, an American dude living in Belgium who travels all across the world with his work, and along his way he picks up beers for me and then sends them to me to review for you guys here on the channel. So quite a few of the kind of crazy American reviews that you've seen on the channel over the last little while have been thanks to him. So Chris, a massive thank you to you once again. The Ocular that I mentioned a minute ago, he was saying that was his favourite triple IPA, I think, ever, actually, and he seemed to really enjoy that review. So Chris, I really hope that you enjoy this one as well, and I hope the rest of you guys watching enjoy this review as well. It's always cool to introduce you guys to new random breweries in America, and I do need to get back out to the West Coast at some point. I was there when I was like 5 or 6 or something, which is obviously far too young to be drinking beer, even for Scottish people. But yeah, fingers crossed that's something that we can make happen in the future. My dad loves going out to America, so I'm sure I can kind of convince him at some stage to do that. That's something that is definitely on the cards, and we will be going to New England, Colorado and Texas next year. We'll see how that one goes. Fingers crossed, COVID permitting. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this beer once again then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Monkish Brewing Company before, and hopefully I can add some more to that in the fairly near future. I'm not sure when I'll be able to get my hands on some of their beers again, but fingers crossed it's not too long. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Monkish Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes once again. So Monkish Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Torrance in Los Angeles, over in California on the American West Coast, and the company was founded by Henry and Adriana Nguyen, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. But Henry actually has a PhD in theology, and he taught at Loyola Marymount University for a while before he started his own brewery. But apparently his interest in beer originates from when he was drinking the Belgian beers during his time doing his PhD studies in Scotland. As I said in the last video, I'd be very curious to know what university he was at, because depending on when he was there, he may well have encountered 6 Degrees North Brewing up in Stonehaven near Aberdeen. I studied in Aberdeen, of course, and they're a Belgian style brewery, so maybe he might have encountered them, but I think perhaps it was a bit before that came a little bit after his time in Scotland probably. But apparently he started homebrewing back in 2007, and he was teaching part-time, but then when he decided that he wanted to go professional, because he got very good feedback for his beers, he was able to raise the funds from family to start his brewery, and it was really kind of interesting for him actually. So the brewery itself was founded in 2011, but they opened up properly in 2012 with a capacity of only 15 barrels and a small tap room on site. Apparently it was, very kind of bare bones, but it really kind of took off for them, and the name Monkish, of course, comes from the fact that he studied theology, which is pretty cool, and you know, that's his love of Belgian beers as well. You know, the Trappist beers are always, you know, very iconic for a lot of beer drinkers. But apparently the plan that he had originally was to focus on sour beer, but they poured all the money they had into getting the brewery off the ground, and so they couldn't afford the barrels and things that they would have needed to do this. And they also had a bit of problems getting acidity from the beers as well, actually. But in the early days, Adriana also worked full-time at Toyota to support the 3 children, and Henry would actually take the youngest of the kids on the deliveries with him during the day and then brew during the middle of the night. Apparently he had very, very little free time. But after a while they began to focus on barrel-aged saisons, and they gained a lot of praise for this style, actually, and they just kind of went with that because that's what really seemed to work for them. Apparently they managed to develop a lot of their own methods and things that went down very well with drinkers. So fingers crossed I can try some of those saisons at some point. It would be quite cool to try some of the very early beers that these guys produced, because the New England IPAs came a little bit later on. So in 2014, on that note, Henry promoted Jennifer Troe from the tasting room to be the assistant brewer, and she was apparently very much behind this growth in IPA output that the brewery had. Prior to this, they apparently had a no IPA sign above the bar, which was it was sort of serious, if you like, but also a little bit of a joke too. Because Henry just wanted to focus on brewing his Belgian style beers. But over the years these guys have continued to grow, and apparently they've been driven a lot by Henry's perfectionism. His wife says that he's just a big ball of stress all the time, he kind of cares almost too much about things, but that's really been what has kind of propelled this brewery to success, from what I understand. Over the years they've expanded the brewery, they've added more employees to the team, and as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 610 different beers according to Untappd, and it's the IPAs that get a lot of praise these days. It's the big New England hazy things that they do. I'd be curious to know if they do West Coast IPAs and stouts and things like that these days. I'm sure it is still mainly Belgians and IPAs that they focus on, but I'm not sure if there are a few other things in there as well. But I always enjoy trying different styles from breweries that are not well known for these styles. I think it can always be very interesting. Case in point would be the lovely stouts that I had recently from Treehouse over in New England, and those were really interesting, actually. But yeah, fingers crossed we can get to Monkish at some point. It would be awesome to have Henry on the channel to do for an interview at some point. Fingers crossed he could find some time for that. But yeah, it would be awesome to feature Henry on the channel and talk a little bit about Monkish Brewing Company, because these guys are very hyped. Like I said, they've got a great reputation, and it would be awesome to try some of the original Belgian style beers that these guys had. So I'll need to keep an eye out, because Monkish do appear every so often in Copenhagen, and if they're not madly expensive, then it would be cool to try one of those more Belgian style beers that they do. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Monkish Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that these guys have done. I mean, 610 beers over, what is it, about about 8 years or something. That's pretty impressive, I have to say. That is pretty good. Very good rate of return. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, this one is just like a car in like a cloud or something like that, like a Jesus cloud or something, I don't know. So the artwork on this one is quite interesting. You know, it's that is a little bit different. It almost, you know, you do wonder when you see something like that. It's almost like, you know, the carbon monoxide in the car. It's kind of a bit of a strange artwork, that I have to admit. But there you can see the nice little hop flower, the Monkish hop flower there. Foggy window, it says on the side there, double IPA. You can see the can is sweating a little bit because of this lovely Scandinavian summer that we're still having into October. It's crazy. But yeah, 8.1% New England style double IPA, hazy double IPA, whatever you want to call it. This can is 1 American pint, which is 473 millilitres in normal people measurements. I always make fun of the American measurement system because it makes no sense. Use the metric system, guys. It's based on water, the universal solvent. Just do it. Always say that in these American reviews, but you do get a little bit more beer, so it's not all bad. But yeah, 473 milliliter can, this one. And so let's get it out and we'll get on to the tasting. As I said earlier, massive thank you to Chris Contreras for making this review possible, and I seriously hope that you guys are enjoying this little American mini-series that we're having once again. I don't know how many boxes Chris has actually sent me now. I think this might actually be 5. So there was the German stuff, there was the German stuff. Then there was the Germans, the lambics. Then he sent me a couple of New England ones. Then he sent me another big box of New England ones. I don't know if there was a third box of New England. So this is either box number 5 or box number 6, if I remember rightly. So Chris has sent me a stupid amount of beer over the years, and you know, it's awesome to have subscribers like that that just want you to, you know, taste their favourite beers. It's great. So yeah, awesome. You know, Chris is a legend, I have to say. So I'm taking him a few Swedish beers when I meet him in Brussels very soon. Yeah, this one looks very nice. It's pretty much what you'd expect from a New England IPA. I would say that in terms of colour, this beer is really, I'd say that it's almost like a mango juice, to be honest with you. It's almost like a cross between a pineapple and a mango juice. I always compare the New England IPAs to the different fruit juices because that's what they really just remind me of. Everyone has their own frame of reference though. Yeah, for me this one poured with about between a quarter and a third finger of a frothy white head. It's just faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer. It looks very nice, but yeah, this one is pretty much what you'd expect from the New England Hazy IPA. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but I mean overall it does look pretty nice. You do get a few bits of light coming through the edge of this one, and it does look pretty nice. It does look pretty nice for the moment. So yeah, I think this beer is kind of what you'd expect from a New England double IPA. Not the soupiest and gloopiest one that I've come across right enough. And one of the things I do wonder about this, is it going to be as drinkable or more drinkable than the Oculars was? Because that was ridiculous for a 10.3%. It was actually quite a light mouthfeel. But then again, California, I think, you have to remember that compared to Scandinavia, it is quite far south. So maybe they need that little bit more wetness and crispness in the mouthfeel. So yeah, we need to bear that in mind when we review beers that are from further south than Scandinavia. I think the Scandinavian beers especially that I normally drink have very thick mouthfeels by comparison. But yeah, this one should be nice. Let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we get on with this one. So incidentally, this beer is hopped with Galaxy, Nelson Sauvin and Citra. I forgot to mention that earlier. So we know Galaxy is a big, pungent Australian hop, lots of passion fruit, a few other kind of softer things like mango, etc. Citra we know is the classic American high alpha acid hop. Mangoes, a bit of lemon, lime, other kind of complexities in there. Nelson Sauvin is the biggest alpha acid of the lot, about 16%, big white green grapey notes from New Zealand, of course. Nelson on the southern island, New Zealand, Aotearoa, if I remember the name rightly. But yeah, the aroma coming out of this beer is very nice. The thing that I remember with the last one was I thought it was going to be a more wheaty and bitey type New England IPA, but it was actually more oaty leaning in the flavour. And again, I get this vibe from this one that it's a bit more wheaty and bitey in the malty base, but you do get a nice smooth kind of oaty creaminess to the beer as well. The malt base, there is a degree of crispness to this one, so I would wonder if there's a wee bit of Pilsner malt in here. I do wonder about that, but the American malts I think smell quite different to the European ones. The American ones I think do smell just a little bit lighter and almost more crisp than the likes of the German malts do. The German ones just smell a bit thicker and bready, and they are a bit thicker I think in the mouthfeel again. But yeah, you can smell that sort of white bready base to the beer. As I say, you've got a thicker kind of wheaty note to it. The wheat has a little bit of bitiness and pungency to it, and you've also got a bit of a kind of oaty, creaminess to the beer as well. There's maybe a wee touch of a biscuity note to this one, like a McVitie's digestive kind of biscuity thing, or cookies as the Americans would call it. I think we've got to use the American English a little bit. Yeah. This beer, the malt base in this one, for me, again, it leans towards that really wheaty, bitey end of the New England spectrum. So yeah, it comes across, it's quite similar to the Trillium ones, from what I remember. They were quite wheaty and bitey in their profiles. But I think the more that you smell of this, your nose almost saturates a little bit, and it becomes a wee bit more oaty, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. This one. So on the hoppy side of things then, there's a little touch of earthiness to this one, but not too much. I really think the green side of the hops really leans more towards that big kind of floral spicy note. As I said, you're going to get a good bit of green, you're going to get a good bit of floral aromaticity from all three of the hops in this one. Nelson Sauvin, everyone associates it with that light grapey sort of thing, but it can have a hell of a kind of floral, it can have a hell of a floral spiciness to it if you use it earlier in the boil. But I do wonder, maybe there's a bit of Columbus being used in here as a bittering hop. That's quite common over in California. But yeah. You've also got a good bit of a lighter grassy quality to this beer, which is quite nice. But I would say the green side of the beer for me really leans towards the kind of big floral aromatic side of things. The green side of the beer is quite big and floral in that sense. You've got a nice little bit of grassiness, as I said. Then the fruity side is where this beer really starts to shine. Actually, you've got a really interesting blend of things in here. So on that fruity note, you can definitely pick out the bit of the more kind of pungent passion fruity notes. That'll be both the Galaxy and the Citra that are contributing to that. But then you get a really kind of juicy mango. You'll pick up a few kind of like papaya, apricot-y type notes to this one. It's very kind of typical if you know these two hops. There's nothing too surprising about it, but then at the kind of more towards the front of the nose, then you'll get the slightly more oily, white, green grapey, almost gooseberry-like note from the Nelson Sauvin. But at the same time, the Nelson Sauvin is going to kind of contribute to that as well. The Citra will give you a little bit of a gooseberry quality too, but it's kind of, how do we say, it's a little bit, the Nelson Sauvin is just a little bit more kind of soft in things, I would say. It definitely leans more towards the kind of grapey end of the spectrum, if you like. So yeah, lovely little bit of oily gooseberry, white, green, grapey sort of thing. Maybe, I don't know if it's right to say, you get a little touch of a lemon limey kind of zestiness out of the beer as well, and that is most likely from the Citra. But yeah, I like how that goes together in this beer. So yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. It comes across really nicely. Camera control is going a little bit crazy at the moment, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, let's have a taste of this beer and just see how we get on then. I'm really curious to see what this has in store for us. So this one is the Foggy Window, a New England Hazy Double IPA coming in at 8.1% ABV from Monkish Brewing Company in Torrance, Los Angeles, California. Thank you again to Chris for this one, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Slàinte, skål! Ooh, that is pretty nice actually. This one, this strikes me as a little bit more creamy than the last one, I have to say. It really does come across as being a little bit more kind of creamy than the Oculars did, and that's kind of surprising because normally you would expect that the heavier alcohol one would be the more creamy and the more kind of thick mouthfeel, but I actually find this one to be a little bit kind of thicker and more creamy than that, and that's really not what you'd expect, because as you go up the alcohol scale you get more oats, you get more wheat, and that makes the beer more hazy, and you kind of expect more of a just a sort of kind of creaminess to the beer. So this is quite surprising actually. But what I will say is, this is another damn good beer from Monkish Brewing Company. I'm not surprised about the quality that's coming out of this one. So thumbs up to them once again. So yeah, I really like how this goes together. Let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. We'll get the rest of the beer in the glass. And this is damn good. I can see why Chris would have sent me this one. I'm a big fan of the New Zealand hops, and I do like a bit of Galaxy as well. Another very nice hop from Australia, incidentally, is Enigma. It's quite similar actually to Nelson Sauvin, except it's got a little bit of red berryish quality to it on top of the it's got a little bit of a kind of red berryish quality to it on top of the kind of gooseberry sort of white green grapey notes. Actually, Enigma's a lovely hop. Hallertau Blanc on that note from Germany is another really interesting one. But yeah, this is lovely. So what you'll notice with this beer straight away is that you get a lovely kind of white bready quality. That blankets the middle third of your tongue back third of your tongue, and it comes, you know, this beer really gets more and more creamy the more you drink of it. So yeah, on the back third of your tongue then, you can feel the breadiness just kind of thickening up a little bit. It's a little bit more kind of bitey and wheaty in that sense as well, which is quite nice, so I really like that. But the beer, as you move further forward into the kind of middle third of your tongue, you can feel the beer it gets a little bit lighter in its mouthfeel almost, but then you start to get the creamy notes. So on top of that kind of pale malty white bready base, you can feel the nice oaty sort of creaminess coming out of the beer. But like I say, back third of your palate is definitely more thick and wheaty and a bit more bitey towards the back of the tongue. In the middle of that middle third of your tongue, you get a wee bit of an oily, more kind of biscuity quality coming out of it. So yeah, there is a wee bit of an oily biscuity note there, some McVitie's digestive notes, and you kind of feel that spreading out across the middle third of your palate. I would say that this beer, in terms of its malt base, is, you know, really quite straight shooting in a sense. There's not too much in the way of complexity to it, but it just does what it does very well, and I think the creaminess of this beer is interesting too. It just surprises me that this one comes across as more creamy to me than the Oculars did. I really find that quite odd. The Oculars, I think, was actually, it felt a lot wetter than this, to be honest with you. But yeah, regardless, both of them, you know, very, very nice beers, and you can see immediately when you try these beers for the first time, you can see why a lot of people rate this brewery. So, you know, not surprised, let's just say that. So yeah, I think we've covered the malt base as much as we need to. Let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of earthiness to this one. As you move further forward along the sides of the palate, you can feel it gradually gets more kind of floral and aromatic, which I really quite like. It's got a nice big kind of floral aromaticity to it. I do wonder a little bit about the Columbus in this one. I do think they probably used a bit of Columbus as the bittering hop here. Again, the kind of floral spicy note that this beer has is very distinctive. It's almost a little touch kind of peppery, if you like. It doesn't feel quite as kind of dank, if you like, as some of the beers that would use Chinook. Chinook's a very popular bittering hop as well. You can use it as an aroma hop. In my opinion, that doesn't work quite as well. So yeah, but I think I've got a feeling this beer doesn't feel all that dank. I think it is just Columbus that would have been used here. But as you reach the front corners of the palate, it does become a little bit more aromatic rather than kind of floral and spicy. Then around the front curve of the tongue, it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy, to be honest with you. And that front third of the tongue is where you're getting the nice fruity elements coming out of the hoppy side of the beer, which is great. So yeah, this one again, really solid on that front as well. What I would say though is that the more pungent side of the tropical fruits in this one, it doesn't come across as anywhere near as pungent as it might do in the aroma, to be honest. But yeah, if you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, you get a wee bit of that darker passion fruity note there. Again, that's both the Galaxy and the Citra that are going to do that. And as you move further forward, it gets a bit more mango-like. That is more the Citra, I think, that's going to give you that. And as you move further forward, you'll get a sort of lighter apricot-y, kind of almost papaya-like note out of it. There's maybe a wee touch of pineapple in there sitting on top of those two, to be honest with you. I do get a wee touch of pineapple that, and I think that is more likely to be the Galaxy. I think the apricot and the papayas are more likely to be the Citra in this one. But when you come further forward from that, you'll notice that the fruit does get a little touch more oily. So the front third of your tongue, the front ninth of your tongue, if you want to be kind of pernickety about it, that is a distinctively more oily, and that's where you get the kind of oily green grapey, white grapey notes from the Nelson Sauvin for me. You could be forgiven for thinking there's a little bit of a gooseberry type quality to it. I mean, Citra is going to give you, Citra can have complexities that are like lemon limey and almost gooseberry, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's playing a role in there. But the Nelson Sauvin for me definitely comes out on that, almost the very tip of your tongue, and it's just distinctively more oily. As you reach the very edge of the tongue too, there is a bit of a kind of zestiness to the beer, a sort of lemon limey kind of zestiness, and I think again that Citra that's going to contribute to that. Citra is a very it's a very diverse hop in a lot of ways, and it's one of the ones that really works very well in a single hop beer. Idaho 7 is a newer one that works very well. You know, Mosaic can do well, but I have to say I've not seen too many Nelson Sauvin single hop beers. I always thought Nelson Sauvin would be a really interesting one to try in like a Pilsner or something like this, but Nelson Sauvin is a beautiful, beautiful hop, and you know, Nelson Sauvin and Mosaic I think can work very nicely together. That's a really interesting kind of combination. But this beer for me, it's really it's quite a tropical leaning New England double, nice kind of soft fruits, and you also have a nice little bit of a you also have a very nice kind of lemon limey note to this one I think on the aftertaste as well. But I think overall I find this one to be quite a creamy New England double. It's very smooth actually. You do get a wee bit more of a wheaty bitiness on the back of the tongue the further you go into the aftertaste. It's got a nice little touch of hoppy bitterness to it, and you've also got some kind of juicy fruits. So yeah, I think this beer has a very nice kind of take on it. So it's got a very nice vibe about it actually. I'm just surprised that this one is almost a bit kind of thicker and more creamy than the Oculars is, than from what I remember. But yeah, it's another lovely New England double, and I can see why Chris liked this one once again. It's got a really good balance to it in my opinion. It's got a nice, you know, it's nice to have a bit of American, a bit of Australian, and a bit of New Zealand hop in it. It shows you a little bit of everything. You maybe could put one of the European hops in here, like a bit of Mandarina Bavaria or something like that, or Hallertau Blanc, or you know, a little bit of probably actually, come to think of it, Styrian Wolf from Slovenia with a bit of melon flavour could be an interesting addition to this beer. That would be a really interesting thing to do with it. But regardless, a very, very nice beer in my mind, so it gets a thumbs up from me once again. Let's just focus on that mouthfeel a little bit before we round off the review then. So yeah, for me, this one, I'd say that this beer is kind of top end to mid bodied, maybe bottom end to full bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. This beer to me comes across as it's quite a creamy and very smooth mouthfeel that it has. I really do find this creamier than the Oculars, as I said, and that surprised me when that's 10.3% and that's a triple. Did not expect that from this beer, but I do find this one a little bit thicker. In terms of IBUs, what would we say about this? I think this one is maybe your standard 30 or 40. I think 40 probably. 40 IBUs for this one. The other one, I think, yeah, the other one, the Oculars was a bit bigger. Does it say what the IBUs are in this? Sometimes it does on the American beers. No, it doesn't, but I think this is about 40. I do think this one's about 40 IBUs. It's not going to blow the head off you anyway in terms of its IBU count. But the Malt Base, like I say, very kind of smooth and quite creamy. And this one, there's a little bit of sweetness to it. The oats almost become a little bit sweeter the further you go into the aftertaste. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness, and like I say, you've also got a nice kind of fruity juiciness coming off the beer as well. But overall, this is a very, very nice New England double. It kind of shows me again why this brewery is very highly rated, and I have to say, I would be very curious to know if these guys are doing a West Coaster, and I'd be curious to try some of the original Belgian style beers that they did as well. I'm a huge fan of tripels and quadrupels and things like that, so I need to have a look and see what Monkish actually have, and I do hope that I can get out there and have a little look at this brewery at some point too. There's a lot of very interesting things out there that would be really cool to look at. So yeah, really interesting beer to try this one. Once again, a huge thank you to Chris for making this review possible, and I sincerely hope that you guys have enjoyed it. So let's leave it at that. This one was the Foggy Window, an 8.1% New England's double, hazy double IPA, whatever you want to call it, from Monkish Brewing Company in Torrance in Los Angeles, over in California on the American West Coast. Lovely beer, and a brewery that I definitely recommend that you check out. So hopefully I can get out there and visit them sometime soon. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Monkish Brewing Company as well. Hopefully we can review more from these guys soon. Do let me know some other breweries you'd like me to see me review, and you know, let me know what your favourite beers are from these guys too. I'd love to have a triple, quadruple, and a West Coast IPA would be very interesting from these guys, I think. So we'll see what we can do in the future. Slange it, skull, cheers. Make sure you check out Monkish Brewing Company from Torrance, Los Angeles, California, America. This one was the Foggy Window 8.1% New England Hazy Double IPA. Cheers.